It's 2014 and you are a child. Your cousin is coming to your house and you see him pull out his phone and begin playing a game where you sit in an office with two doors and you look on cameras. You don't have any idea what this game is about, but you look at him play. Then after a few months you finally find the game on the internet and begin enjoying it. That is my story of how I actually found Five Nights at Freddy's. And one thing stuck to me after all these years, and that is the ambience of the game. When I was watching my cousin, I didn't even know that this game was a horror one, but I could tell from the atmosphere that this game was a horror one. When I saw him looking at the cameras and then I saw Bonnie standing right beside the door, I had no idea why. And back then nobody knew the story of the games and you couldn't tell why they were doing that. These are two things that makes this game scary: the plot and the atmosphere. And my question is, what makes a video game horror? Since I started the video with FNAF, why not continue with it? And no, I'm not going to talk about Security Breach and Help Wanted, I'm only going to talk about the first 6 games. Starting with FNAF 1, you can already tell the horror in this game by just looking at your office. It's very small and it can easily make you feel uneasy. Then you look at the doors and see 2 buttons, the one to close the door and the one to turn on the light. And that's where the tension and the unexpected comes in, because when you turn on the light, you'll never know if an animatronic is right outside your door. And if it is, then you'll get surprised with the sound we all know. This little sound can literally give you a panic attack. Or when you look at Foxy and then see that he isn't on his stage anymore, then you switch the camera to the hallway and you see him just running. That little unexpected moment can get you dead if you play for the first time and don't know that Foxy does this. Another creepy thing at this game is just when you see the animatronics on the camera, because they will always have creepy postures, especially Chica and Freddy. Freddy will always be hard to see on the cameras because he will always hide in dark spots. Or when you see Chica at your door, it really gives you a very uneasy vibe. In FNAF 2, especially on later nights, you are constantly on the move. You always have to wind up the music box, and if you stay too long on the cameras, then the withered animatronics will get your camera down and will force you to put up your mask. The feeling of tension when you wind up the music box and just pray for the animatronics to not get your camera down. Or when all the animatronics attack you and you can't wind up the music box and you see the yellow triangle in the right corner. Or even when you hear this sound. In FNAF 3, although the jump scares are not even that scary, now we have some kind of plot, and that is of Springtrap. At the time we didn't know of William Afton, so just imagine playing for the first time and you open up the camera and see Phantom Balloon Boy, then after 2 seconds he gives you a jump scare and you think that you're dead, but you actually aren't. Or if you go to the left to open the system menu and you see Phantom Foxy, you don't even have time to react and he gives you a jump scare. The unexpected thing in this game is the fact that you think there's only one animatronic, that being Springtrap, but you are wrong, because then you will see Phantom Balloon Boy and all the other phantoms. Then after every night you see that you can play a mini game with one of the animatronics, and when you reach the room where you can't enter and you see that it says error, then you go back and you see purple guy coming and disassembling you, then you can get a little jump out of that thing. Or imagine booting up the game and seeing one of the rare Springtrap screens, then you start to think to yourself, what even is this? Is just a simple Easter egg or perhaps something more? Now, for me, everything about FNAF 4 is actually scary. The ambience where you hear the dogs barking or the grandfather clock, then you have to go to the door and listen for breathing, which is very creepy because you are standing right next to the animatronic. Then when you finish the night and go to the mini games, you feel that you are safe, but you are wrong. In Sister Location, the plot is actually more scary than the gameplay, in my opinion. When you hear Baby's story about that little girl, or when you play the minigame and make the secret ending. But the most unexpected part is on night 5, where if you make a mistake and get a jump scare, you meet Anna, which you haven't seen in the game up to that point, and you actually think to yourself, who is this? And finally, FNAF 6, or Pizzeria Simulator. Just imagine a whole family reuniting, but they are dead and possessing animatronics. Well, this is actually the lore of this game. Baby and William are actually part of Michael's family, but they are trying to kill him. The selfish part is another creepy part, because you never know when an animatronic is going to attack when you lift your paper, and the fact that they can attack when you don't lift the paper, or even the fact that you can actually buy Lefty to be in your pizzeria, which is actually pretty scary in my opinion. Why would you even want to buy a killer animatronic to be in your pizzeria? And let's not forget about the secret in these 3 mini games, which are telling the puppet story, the girl who possesses Chica, and something about the Afton family. Now, I couldn't think of any game that better fits this category other than the DLC, and I honestly think that no game can actually beat this one at this category. Most of the horror elements are from the portal breaks that are coming from Monica, and almost all of these portal breaks are unique. I haven't seen them in any other game, and the best thing that this game does is hiding these elements until you finally reach them, and then you will get a shock. When you first enter this game, you think of it as a normal visual novel, although the start of the game tells you that there's disturbing content, but when you reach that content you just forget about the warning, and then you start making an emotional connection with the characters. Then you will come to the part where everything breaks, and even at that point you don't even know that Monica is responsible for all of this until the end of the game. What I'm trying to say is that the horror in this game is the emotions that the game gives you, and at the end of the game the portal breaks. Although it should have been a red flag from the beginning that you can't actually make a route for Monica, but that's the thing in this game, that you can actually make a route for the other girls just for them to die in your face later. And the fact that the characters seem to change their behavior in other chapters. For example, Yuri in the first chapter is shy and timid, but in the second and third chapter seems to be more manipulative and crazy, and that's all because of Monica. She changes their behavior. And when the first act ends, act 2 starts with creepy things. First off, you can see this Monica glitch, which is actually happening because the game thinks that Sayori is no longer in the game. Then comes one of my favorite effects. If you speed up this part, you can see that the screen is rotating, and you can see that Monica is in front of the text box. Then there's other creepy stuff like text being written with a bigger font and bold, or a close-up of Yuri's face but glitched. And probably one of my favorite ones is this part. Well, at this part you can kind of start to see that something is wrong with Monica, because there is no other answer. The game forces you to choose her. Or at this part where she interrupts you and just gets you out of the classroom. And the game keeps being like that until Yuri's confession, where she... And the creepiest thing in this part is no matter what answer you give her, she will do the same thing. Then, perhaps one of the most brutal things in this game, you are forced to spend an entire weekend by her corpse. And after this point you'll find that Monica was behind all of those things. Then perhaps one of the most used portal breaks in every game that does these kinds of things is the fact that Monica actually knows your computer name. And perhaps one of the most unique portal breaks is the fact that if you record with OBS, she will actually know this and will jump scare you. Then this game makes you actually interact with your computer, because you have to go to the game files and delete Monica to advance. Then you start a new game and think that everything is normal, but you come to this part where Sayuri takes the place of Monica, and she is now self-aware. Then somehow Monica gets back into the game and tries to delete Sayuri to protect you, and that's the end of the game. Then after the credits you'll get a note from Monica which gives her final goodbyes to the club, and then the game gives you an error which forces you to reinstall it. Now there are a lot of games in which you have to run from enemies, but I want to talk about Outlast. And I think that out of all of these games from this type, Outlast does it the best. Because of the fact that you can't actually beat the enemies. The only thing you can do is to run and hide. And when you're being chased by an enemy and that creepy music starts playing, and then you come across a dark area and you have to pull out your camera and use your night vision, then if you hide and the enemy saw you, he can literally pull you out from your hideout. This is 80% all of the Outlast gameplay. You are constantly running from enemies. You will never know when you turn around the corner if there's gonna be an enemy or not. And then the game forces you to find batteries because your only source of light in the dark places is your camera with night vision. And I think the creepiest part in the first game is this one where you lose your camera and you have to go down and get it back, and you don't have any source of light. Or when you approach a corner and an enemy jumps at you. Or in Outlast 2 where you find the guy that actually helps you. At first it seems like a trap because no one can help you in this game, but then he lets you hide in his house, and when you finally think that you have someone on your side, he gets killed, and again you are alone. Then you see the enemy's flashlights and you know that they spotted you, and you again have to run or hide. But the creepiest parts in this game for me are the school parts, because you feel like you are alone but at the same time feel that you aren't. Or this part where the creature from the school chases you, then you have to go to the bathroom and hide in one of the stalls while the monster is invisible and he is singing and at the same time opening the doors. Then you build up the courage to exit the bathroom and run again. That for me is the creepiest part in this game. Lastly, I want to talk about two games that I couldn't fit in a single category. First off is Little Nightmares. Now, I know that I could put this game into the first category where I talked about the atmosphere of FNAF. This game though has a different atmosphere. The best thing about this game is how small you feel in comparison to the monsters and the background. This change in size gives you a hopeless feeling, and sometimes the fact that in every room a trap or a monster can await you can build up the tension. The background plays a major part of the creepiness in this game. For example, in the second game, in the hospital section where you go through that long corridor, a lot of hands will start appearing from behind the doors in the background while you run from them. And while in the hospital, you will come across some mannequins which will move only if you don't look at them, so you'll have to shine the flashlight at them while going through the exit. And trust me, your heart is going to beat very fast at this part, because you'll have to deal again with those mannequins. Or even in the beginning of the game, you start in the forest and you don't know how you got there and everything is bigger than you. Then you meet the monster with the shotgun and you have to hide under the water or in some tree logs. And that's your only help in this game, your size, which helps you hide from the danger. I know, maybe Spooky Jumpscare Mansion isn't a scary game when you first play it, but when you reach room 60 you will get an unpleasant surprise beside the cartoon cutouts. This game, just like the DLC, knows how to hide the creep element until you reach it. The first 60 rooms are normal, some cutouts with sound effects popping from the walls occasionally, but once in room 60 you will start to play the real creepy game. All these monsters that come after you are pretty scary looking, unlike the cutouts. Well, some cutouts have creepy designs too, but you get the point. And you can even read infos about the specimens, like the number of people they killed and even the method of killing. Many of them even have creepy death scenes, such as this. Or take a look at this specimen, Specimen 8. He's a dead flying deer with creepy details, and when he chases you, he begins speaking directly to you, which is the only enemy that does this. Or when you look at Specimen 7, the wall of flesh. It looks like it's made from other victims of this mansion. Of course, every specimen has a different detail that makes them creepy, most of which play with your vision, but I find that Specimen 8 is one of the scariest because he speaks to you, which is something unnerving. And if you destroy a lot of cutouts and kill some deers, then you get a bad ending. And the bad ending consists of you turning into a specimen, the things you are running from the entire game.
Congratulations! You did it! It was interesting watching you swing your axe around like that. I know you'll make a fine specimen.
And I got to say that this art style used to depict this is rather scary. You start the game like any other normal game and you end up with an unnerving depiction of your character. In the end, I just want to say that different horror games have different horror elements in them. Some may hide the elements until you reach them, and some may throw you into the game directly into the horror. But at the end of the day, all of these games are part of the same genre. And remember that all of these things said in the video are strictly my opinion. Feel free to think what you like about these games. But that is the video. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe, and you can tell me in the comments ideas for new videos, and I will see you in the next one.